Good evening and welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 150. With us tonight we have Micah Fisher-Kirshner. Micah is Senior SEO Manager for Zendesk.com. And on the other side of the pond in the UK is Tim Capper. Tim is a conversion rate optimization specialist, a PPC aficionado, and an SEO hailing from near Corby in the UK. All right, if I can find the right button to click. Each week we answer questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+. We have 10 of them tonight, and it shouldn't take us too long to get through them. All right, whoops, something's gone wrong here. What is that?
And thank you for watching.
I'll reload and see. Okay, we'll click forward. We've got a problem. Okay. All right, let's go back to the way we've always done it. Let me just find a panel report. Okay, here we go. The first one is from Pulkit Kurana. It's titled Redirect Mistake. He said, I've just checked over one of my client's sites and it doesn't redirect to the home page. index.asp and www.index.asp. Both the URLs don't redirect to the main individual page. So my question here is, am I making a mistake for not using the 301 redirect? Because Ahrefs is showing me the duplicate content for both the URLs. Your help will be highly appreciated. Thanks.
Yeah, so his site's now fixed. Dave Elliott provided kind of an example of what the script should be. But yeah, you generally want to make sure that the non-dub and the dub and slash index ASAP slash no slash secure, non-secure, all of those are merged together into one. In fact, even capitalizations as well, I should note, can make differences. So yeah, it's not just Ahrefs, but your webmaster tools should show some information sometimes there. And then if you're getting oddly traffic in your analytics logs from to kind of the different pages, that's showcasing that there's potentially an issue there. So yeah, you want to just merge them all together, basically let Google as well as users know that it's one, there's no difference. It's a single page, you're not duplicating, you're not confusing anybody of which one to show. So do that, and we'll be good.
Okay. Tim, any comment on this?
No, that's it, mate.
Okay. All right. Our next question is number 2, and I'll run this on local business schema from Julius Park. He said, should local business schema be placed into the footer of a multi-location business website? The website represents the brand and has separate pages for each location. These pages are marked up with the appropriate schema relevant for that particular location. However, we were thinking of placing marked up schema in the footer. It currently has the name, address, phone number details for the locations, but these are not marked up. Will this confuse or help Google?
So as I replied to him, it's great that he's got the obviously individual location pages. for each office. That's where you should apply your schema markup. If they're in the footer, like you said, across all pages, you shouldn't mark those up. You will just cause mass confusion there, because ultimately on one page you will have, 5, 6, 7, 10 locations all, having schema markup, and Google, won't kind of understand which page to attribute that markup to. So the ones in the footer, leave the ones on the location pages mark up, and do it that way. In fact, and I did mention that perhaps you should also just keep an eye on when you search for that business in a particular location, is the correct knowledge panel showing? Because what I have seen in the past is that, just leaving schema out for at the minute, if you've on your footer of all your pages have 5 different addresses, occasionally I've seen confusion where one particular page or one particular business has got a little bit more authority to it. It's used more regularly. It has a lot more reviews. Perhaps it's been mentioned a few times here and there. It's got a lot more links, etc. And if somebody searches for it in regular search, it tends to show the incorrect knowledge panel. In a business knowledge panel. So just keep an eye on that, and if that does start happening, your best bet would be to actually just have a little location link in your footer to, this is to our location pages or whatever the case may be, but actually remove the full business name and address, because that can really screw things up. But just keep an eye on that for future reference.
Excellent. Any comment on this one, Micah?
Nope.
Okay. Navaja Jokic has asked us a question titled Terrible Google Cache. He said, I've just checked the Google Cache of one of my sites. It looks terrible. No images, no CSS, no fancy WordPress theme, just naked text and hyperlinks. What could be the reason? WP theme or a caching plugin? You guys might like to check the community answers on your panelist report there. I think Navaja said that he did finally narrow it down to a caching plugin, or a plugin of some type anyway, which he removed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always a lot of possibilities that can come up, whether you're accidentally blocking images, CSS. If it's, in this case, it was a caching plugin. If it just happened to be that you recently switched themes, Google may not have had time to cache the page. So in this case, yeah, it was fairly simple. But yeah, you just want to make sure that you can use Google's Webmaster Tools fetch and render as well to make sure that everything looks okay in one area. As for the cache, that as well. Can be useful, but there's a nice leverage with the Webmaster Tools that should as well kind of let you know specifically what things are potentially causing that issue.
Yep. Okay. Have we covered it? I think so. Here's one from Pankaj Sony on this, having the same content in multiple social bookmarking sites. He would like to know if he can submit the same content in multiple places. Is that a good idea or a bad idea, guys?
Submitting, I mean, you want to know your audience. Let's just say the difference between, well, social bookmarking is one thing, but if it's like submitting to Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus, to share, that's a different story.
Yeah. These these social bookmarking sites that you get out there on, like Fiverr and these submission services to social bookmarking sites. These are completely random. Literally are just bookmarking sites. I wouldn't even call them social. They are not Facebook, they're not Twitter, they're not Google Plus, they're not any other mainstream social platform. They are just pure and simply bookmarking sites, like a directory of bookmarks. They then, because you've inadvertently given it a couple of tags, every single one of those tags appears on another page for this, and they are an absolute nightmare mess. Do not go down that road. Because ultimately you will end up having to try and get all of these removed after you've encountered some penalty. And then when you can't get them removed because nobody ever manages those sites, then you'll end up just having to disavow all of those domains. Do not go down that road. Absolute nightmare. And they're not social at all. It's a directory for links, which doesn't contain any content whatsoever.
Yep. Okay. So the pancake, Sony, the answer is absolutely not. Don't just worry about submitting the same content. Don't bother submitting any. Here's one from Arithmol TP, and Arithmol said, what are redundant host names? How to solve the redundant host names issue? Thanks in advance.
Go ahead, Jim. You jumped in on that one. So
I think I did too, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say much wrong there, did I? Redundant host names, Arithmol, that's just a Google term. It usually occurs when you've got both dub and non-dub versions of your site appearing in Google search, and you've got two sites fighting against each other. It's in your interest to either select one or the other version of your site and set that as your preferred domain in Google Webmaster Tools, or at least Google Search Console. And at the same time, you use htaccess if you're using an Apache version of a web server, and 301 one side to the other side, I should say, to your preferred version. That just about covers that, guys. I'm going to say that's covered. Here is our next, and it's Chase Reiner on speeding up WordPress websites. He said, does anyone have a suggestion about speeding up a WordPress website? Most of the time, I don't think it's anything I can fix because a lot of my Google errors during page speed analysis are due to my theme. I'm using Divi. Any advice or suggestions are greatly appreciated. My site is reliablecomputerhelp.com.
Well, without diving into it and getting into it, I mean, the thing is with WordPress, great platform, but people become over-reliant on plugins. rather than using, CSS or any particular, styling, or actually, coding it into the site. They just grab a plugin and shove it in. It all depends on what's slowing down your site. Is it the images? And until you kind of know what is slowing it down, then you can't really start on fixing it. But for images, I've been playing around with it. Yes, it is a plugin, but of course, if you've got a site that is, already up and running, and it's got hundreds and thousands of pages, well then, if you want to kind of compress the images, I'm liking Smash It at the minute. That works very nicely. If it's a brand new site starting from scratch, then I wouldn't use the plugin. I would just actually optimize the images before you actually start using them. And that way you're compressing the images and you're not having to rely on another plugin. So it's a question of what stage the site's at, what can you do, what can't you do, and it's about just balancing it out. Of course, what's your server like? That could also be, another piece of the puzzle.
Yep. Okay, I think we've got our queue timer working again. Hope so. Here's one from our friend El Ray Resulton, who's looking after that site in the Philippines, the Phil Booking site. El Ray said, is it good or bad to have multiple social accounts in many social networking sites? Like, for example, many Facebook pages, Twitter pages, etc., showing in the Google search engine results page for one company.
Well, why? Why? I mean,
Really?
the point would be why. Let's say, for argument's sake, that you created 10 Twitter pages, 5 Facebook pages, right? And then 4, Google brand pages. So now, let's say you've got all of these in the search results for your name, or for that, for the company. Now, what happens when a person clicks on the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one? Are they empty? Because are you spending, 25 hours a week just managing 27 different, social accounts? What is the point? I mean, literally, what would be the point? Are you expecting to convert or build relationships with all of those pages that are actually one and the same? I mean, why would you spend your time trying to manage all of those just to have a social like 5 Twitter social profiles appeal in search? It's not going to do you any harm, but why waste that time? Have one great Twitter, have one great Facebook, have one great, Google business page or brand page, and maybe you, because I know you're in obviously in hospitality and tourism, maybe a nice one nice Instagram one, or Pinterest, whichever or. But that's enough, because that's going to take more than enough of your time to manage and engage and and build a relationship with the people that are engaging with those different platforms. Yeah, just it's up to you, mate. If you've got 25 extra hours a week to manage all of them, it's not going to do you any harm. But if you've got that amount of hours,
and I personally wouldn't recommend having multiple accounts. The only exception that I can think of to something like that is if you have international sites, and that's to kind of break up like for multiple different languages, and kind of to keep the groups separate and then focused in where you need to for big enough of a brand. Otherwise, I would just bring it down to one. There's not really much of a need beyond having more than one for each area, as Tim's noted.
And the other thing is, if he does a great job of building up the strength of his brand in one site, he might occasionally get 10 listings from that one site in the Google search page. If the brand is strong enough.
Yeah.
So we call this an answer?
Yeah.
Good to see we're powering through these tonight, guys. All right, our next is one from Marty Eigner on reducing bounce rate. He said, I've noticed the bounce rate for some of my landing pages is very high, 50%. Does anyone have any suggestions for reducing this apart from the obvious?
Well, what is the actual landing page, and what are you expecting them to do on that landing page? Are they meant to move through to another page, or do they, I mean, what is the actual landing page, and what is the the call to action on that? Secondly, where is that landing page appearing, and where is it attracting that traffic? Because it might not, the thing is, it might be appearing in a rather kind of random place, not, for a search query that's not, it's, what am I trying to say? It's appearing somewhere where, based on the content that's on the page, so through no fault of your own, it's actually appearing in a search query that, yes, it makes sense. Obviously, Google decided that this is important, but the majority or overall users that are actually searching for that query are not quite searching for what's on your landing page. So it's what I call kind of an incidental bit of traffic, because an incidental bounce rate, because although you are relevant for that, the actual searcher itself is not finding that actual page exactly what they were looking for. So there's two things you really need to look at. And I mean, something like some landing pages 50%, shit, I've got a couple of landing pages sitting on 80, so like I wouldn't panic. And then I've got other pages which sit on 15. So it kind of varies depending on where it is, what the search result is. It's you sort of need to understand that bounce rate. Just because it says 80 on there, don't freak out. Try and dive down and sort of understand what it actually is, and why. And once you kind of figure out, actually it's because it's appearing here, where, yeah, I can see why people are clicking on it in the search results, but it may not be that relevant. Also, by trying to understand where it's appearing and where that bounce is appearing, because it might be appearing in another search result query that generally they're actually moving through to what you want them to do. So you could try and create another page to answer what the other search results are, rather than, you see what I mean? So once you understand where it's coming from, then you can, have a better idea on how you can potentially reduce that for that particular query, or how you can, but try and understand it first. There's no one thing about reducing a bounce rate.
Yep. Okay. Did you have any comment on this one, Micah?
Tim's got it.
Tim's nailed it. Okay. All right. This is from a young fella who had his site hacked. He said, I had a forum on my WordPress site called Zingiri's Forms, and it got hacked. And now all of my anchor text from my site, or to my site, I imagine, says buy Viagra online. Any ideas how to fix this? I deleted the plugin, but and the page it was coming up from is 404, but I'm still having problems. It's reliablecomputerhelp.com. Did we cover this earlier? No, we didn't.
We covered the site a little bit, but this is for a different issue.
Oh, okay, it's the same site, but it was a different question. Okay.
Well, you can change it to their competitor, Cialis. Show the hacker that. No. Yeah. So let's see. Let's see. Yeah, you always got to be careful to make sure that all your plugins and applications are up to date, and making sure that they've built kind of secure things, because otherwise, yeah, hackers can get in as you've known. 404 the pages is a good kind of starting point. You want to make sure that Google is aware now that those pages are being changed and fixed, so they don't see that. Have you, where else are you finding them? So, like, are you still getting more the issues that are coming up? Is it really related to that? You can, sometimes there are certain like blacklists that you can add in into the program to make sure that the terms don't come up. Oftentimes it's, is it from being hacked, or is it from other users adding those in? So you may need to check about kind of how you build out better registration checks to make sure that you keep spammers out in that way. And let's see what else. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what other kind of problems. Is it the same problem that you're having, or are there others when you talk about kind of having the same problems, or still having problems? You may have to consider trying a different forum plugin and try to port all the content that you have over so that you don't have those same problems. You may be using an out-of-date forum or a very unsecure one.
Yeah, he did actually get rid of it. He said in the comments later, it is completely gone.
Right, but he's saying he's still having problems though.
Yeah, but I think from the comments on the community, I think what he saw as problems were the listings of backlinks in Ahrefs. But they would relate to the time that it was hacked, and they'd be a hangover from then.
Oh yeah. In those situations, you just got to wait for tools and systems to update.
Yep. Any comment, Mr. Kappa? I'm sorry to push you guys so hard tonight, but with everybody away, I don't know what's going to happen when some Google knees up happening. Are you going to that, Tim?
Yes. It'll just be you, Jim, because Michael will be in San Fran partying with us.
That's true. You will too, won't you?
Yeah.
Okay. We've only got 10 questions tonight, and this is number 10. And Chase Rayner said on spam redirection, if a site with a high spam rate is being 301 redirected to a site with no spam rate, will the site with no spam rate be penalised? Yes.
Federico just like yes. So yeah, this is once again it depends on how high the spam is and has the spam affected the other site as a has that other site essentially been penalized. Yeah, I mean, Google has specifically stated that when you're doing domain purchases that you actually need to do an analysis of its backlink history. Because if it's been used for, well, not just backlink history, but general history too, is that if it's been used for spam and you're redirecting that spammed site over, then your main site could get penalized because of it. The best way is essentially as if it's damaged goods. And if you're trying to replace a very negative thing into kind of your business, it's going to affect your reputation.
Yeah. Any more? No. Well, we've done it again, guys. We've answered all of the questions asked on the. No, we haven't. I have an 11th one. What happened there? Anyway, there's one from Licklighter, who asked a question on duplicate video content. I'm not sure if we can help Rick, but I should say, but let's try. He said, can anyone provide insight into duplicate content penalisation concerning posting duplicate video content on YouTube and hosting it on a site via a proprietary player, not YouTube embed? I'm interested in seeing any case studies or posts around what the ramifications might be for posting identical videos on a site and YouTube, but only those two. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any case studies or posts about this. I think mainly because duplicate content is usually geared to either a page as a whole or the written content on the page. Videos, Google does try to dedupe its images and videos through their systems if it's posted within the same kind of area, like on YouTube, for example. But I think there's no large kind of penalization that I'm aware of where they're going to penalize you for having a hosted one and a YouTube one at scale. Obviously, a single page you're not going to get penalized. So doing something like that at scale, I'm not aware of whether or not Google's going to penalize you for that. I would be surprised, especially if the two of them are on the same page and you're providing both as kind of pick your user preference. It's probably not something I would be concerned about right away. But for those that might work more in the video space, they might have more experience in something like that.
I should say that the site that runs the archives of questions that we run doesn't do it via a proprietary player, and as he points out, not YouTube embed, but that's exactly what we do. We do put our previous recordings via YouTube embed on dumbseoquestions.com. And that certainly hasn't affected us anyway. The traffic on dumbseoquestions.com has always increased around about 25% a year, year on year. But with our next upgrade of that site, we intend to stream our own. But really, I I don't envisage any damage coming towards us for doing that. So that's almost the scenario he's talking about. Any more from anyone? Okay. All right. So that is all of the questions for this week. Now we move on to our news items. And we only have one news item this week, which was an interview with Bing's Duane Forrester. And as you know, Duane was on our 100th episode. And here we are tonight recording our 150th episode. Who would have thought that we'd get to so many recordings? I certainly didn't think it would go this far. But there it'll be. In less than a year, we'll be recording our 200th episode, and hopefully Duane Forrester will be available to come back for that. He did say something in this interview. I'm just reading off the graphic which comes with it. He said, I had glass, I still have glass, I still don't use it. It didn't meet my expectations, but in some ways it exceeded my expectations because it was a first-generation object moving us in a direction. The biggest thing that something like glass does is expose society to the coming change. Well, Duane, I have the utmost respect for you, but I tell you what, if Google Glass gets up anywhere near mainstream, I will gladly walk naked from Tweed Heads to Brisbane.
No. Give it another 20 years. You may have to take out that same purpose.
You're trying to push that vision away, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, we had a bit of a chat on Google Plus today, Micah, about it.
Yeah. My view is that it's not too surprising when you're basically sticking a camera all the time visually that people can see it. It's not a very nice thing. So it's not too surprising. Obviously, work environments, police officers, doctors, where it's not as I was saying, not a social gathering, could become mainstream in those segments. And I think there's a good likelihood. And that was kind of what they were going for, was just testing to see where it might get adoption. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not something that you should be wearing in a movie theater, on the street, just randomly. It's disconcerting to people. If it turned into, however, on the other hand, if it had been much more like sunglasses, where you can't really see the camera, it doesn't stand out, then it becomes a bit more of an interesting use case, because now if you build it into something that people are still wearing, regular glasses because you need to see, sunglasses because people like to kind of shade their eyes, versus say like a watch, which is kind of a little more passé, then there's much more likelihood, because if it's integrated into the product and you can't see that someone has it, you don't know that it's there, and it's much more of a subtlety than when you're using it in that case, versus being kind of the focus when someone looks at you. And so I think that type of situation becomes much more common, potentially could become more common, all bearing, of course, the costs and how long it can last for, and those types of things.
Yeah.
But also as well, the biggest thing is that these types of technologies, which are going to challenge a lot of potential social norms, are only going to increase as the technology for technological speeds increasing, the size of a lot of devices are getting smaller, and so all of these things are going to be in kind of different parts, or it's not common, start to become much more common, and that's going to make things interesting, not just for regular people, but for states and governments, of which it used to be less common. The U.S., we've got our own court cases ongoing now for collecting a lot of data, whether it's online data or cell information, and the ability in the data storage for all that technology is, creating issues that weren't necessarily foreseen, but was like in single use cases good for this, but it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't thought out of what happens if you could collect it all or see it all the time.
Yeah.
So,
what about you, Tim? You must be the only top contributor that didn't get a copy of Google Glass, wouldn't you, Beth?
Yeah, I never had them, so can't comment on them, mate.
All right. Any more comment? We've digressed a bit, I thought, from Duane Forrester's interview. Any more comments on the interview? He's a lovely bloke with an absolute handle on what's going on. That's about all I can say.
Mm.
All right. So it looks like we're at that point again. We've covered the questions and covered the news. A very short news roundup this week. It's thank you for watching, time, and we thank you for your interest in what we do, because what you're watching us makes what we do worthwhile. I've put in the SEO Questions community on Google+, I've placed there, it's publicly available, a link directly into this Hangout. We'll be off the air now in a few moments. We'll go into the green room, but we'll be hanging around for a while, and we'd love to have you join us. So please feel free to come along. We won't be publicly broadcasting, but we'd love to have a chat with you. We'll be back at the same